I mean, me personally, I don't think he's a good leader, but effective. I think he has accomplished a lot of the things that he had said he was going to, in some senses. But I'm not really sure, honestly, if I just don't really know how to define effective.
All right, everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the second semester of Discourse Debrief. I'm Logan.
I'm Peyton.
Blossom.
And I'm Abby.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute. New week, new us, so to speak. It's Valentine's Day, so if you're celebrating that, or if you were celebrating that last week.
Or better known as second Saturday, or Friday, crap, of February. That's how I know it.
Yep, me too. It's Peyton's topic this week, so we'll let him cook here in a minute. But before we get to that, Abby, do you want to give us a little introduction, who you are, what's your majors?
Yeah, okay.
Brief rundown.
Oh, okay. My name's Abby. I'm a sophomore here at the University of Arizona. I'm a global studies major, and I'm minoring in Spanish, but I have plans to go to law school in the future.
Cool. She's Robert.
Yeah, Robert, unfortunately, could not be here. Nobody can replace Robert. He's a special kind of individual. But nonetheless, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And any announcements?
Oh, right. I'm terrible at that. March 4th, sometime in the evening, probably in the Kiva room. That's the plan right now. We will be having the ASUA, I pulled a U, ASUA event, presidential roundtable, just trying to get a feel for who could be our next student government president. So we will be facilitating that, again, probably in the Kiva room if all goes to plan, and sometime in the evening, March 4th. So, okay, now I think we're good.
Now.
Yeah.
I imagine that many of you, knowing it's my week, would be shivering in your timbers, especially if you had watched our previous season, like all of you have, right? You've seen them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We follow you guys.
I did that.
Yeah. Of course.
I like to get abstract and silly with it, but today it's not going to be that bad. I think it's going to be applicable to everybody. And I have a. I didn't mean to do that, but that was funny. Anywho, I've got a broad question, and then depending on how it goes, I'm going to alter the wording of that question very lightly, and I want to see how our opinions change. The topic of today is, what makes a good leader?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
So,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
let's start with
Oh,
you.
okay. Putting me on the spot
I
here.
am indeed.
Yeah.
We're just going to toss you in the deep end.
I think somebody that makes a good leader is someone that takes into account everyone in the group or the team that they're leading and everyone's different skill sets and is able to kind of apply their strengths and weaknesses in ways and projects that they could do best. I don't really know. Just somebody that's kind of very confident and can take control of a situation, but also takes into account everybody in the group.
Okay. Do you think that every single leader that you would define as good does all of those things?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my own situations and experiences, like for group projects, I'm not really talking like leaders of countries or things right now, but just in group projects that I've been in, yeah, I was seeing that. But for group projects that I've been in, I think a leader is somebody that does those things.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think a good leader is a good servant. Yeah. That's what comes to my head when I hear of a good leader, someone who can serve and serve well, someone who understands what it means to be at the bottom, what it means to actually lower yourself so you can hear people. And I don't think that you can be a good leader without having that quality. Now, some people might say it's humility, but I don't think that's what makes a good servant. Some servants can be proud. So a good servant is a good leader. Now, that's one of the qualities of a good leader. I don't think that that's the only thing that should make a good leader. But yeah, what strikes me the most is some people think like charisma is enough to be a good leader, but I think that charisma is good, and it's great if you have it as a leader. But sometimes as a leader, you don't need to be the spokesperson of your group. sometimes you need to take the back seat and know that, like you said, like other people have skill sets. So I think a good leader, like you said, is someone who can watch out for those skill sets, but also someone who's willing to serve.
Okay, good jumping off point. And then for you?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Just to build on that, and like obviously all the soft skills, communication and whatnot. I think the ability to delegate is an important one too. So like if I'm like in charge of like a company and I don't know some part of what we're doing, I'm gonna find someone who does, and I'm just gonna give them the responsibility to carry out whatever I need them to do. And then another big part is like taking responsibility and like holding yourself accountable. I think if someone does that, they're just like a natural leader. So that'd be my broad addition to what's already been said.
Sure, yeah. Before I kind of analyze all of those, just a little context. One of the classes I'm in now, kind of similar how you got inspired by one of yours. I think EDL stands for Educational Leadership, and it's 370, just critically analyzing like the actual like as close to scientific theories of leadership, trying to figure out what is a leader, right? What does it embody? And I think that each and every one of your traits that you listed are part, maybe not necessarily part, but when we have enough traits come together, maybe they sufficiently define what a leader is. And I worded that very specifically to be broad, right? What makes a good leader? Good can have different connotations. Leader can have different connotations, because one of the, I'm going to hit y'all with a curveball, was Hitler not, definitionally, to some extent, a good leader until he lost? How do the skills each of you thought of factor into the likes of Hitler or other people who we recognize as very bad people, but nonetheless were able to lead successfully?
I think he led successfully a war, but I don't think that he was necessarily a good leader in a lot of connotations. And not just because now we, history makes him, we know it's bad, or he was bad or evil. But I think that one of the key things that I said was serving. I don't think he served his people. I don't think the people of Germany wanted what he did. Mm-hmm. And he successfully led a war, but he didn't listen to his people. He didn't listen to anyone. And I don't think that's a good leader. I
agree. I think for dictators, you have to have a different set of I don't know if qualifications is the right word, but criteria for dictators. And like kind of what you said, in a just society, your leader serves the people in the same way that a doctor serves a patient.
Yeah.
I think you can still keep the same qualities and just because you check off charisma and you can delegate and you can find out who's good at this or who's good at that. Mm-hmm. I don't think that those individual qualities alone make you a good leader.
Right.
If you're missing a lot of key components and if you're not listening to your people, if people are suffering under your rule, whether or not you're delegating just right, you have to just great amount of charisma, you're still failing in leadership.
So there kind of has to be a moral objective of serving the people?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
I agree with that one too. I knew you were going to take this politically.
Me going politically is mildly rare.
I mean,
but as I was saying, my definition does change a little bit if I'm applying it to somebody that's a leader of a country. I think a leader of a country should be somebody that serves its people, kind of like what Blossom was saying. I think a leader of a country, a good leader of a country, should have everyone's best interests at heart and should take into account all different kinds of people and how to best serve them. Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that as a leader you can serve all of your people. Mm-hmm. Of course, nobody can serve all of his people.
I was about to ask, are those definitions that's the peak of a leader, or is that more of a minimum in your eyes?
Honestly, a minimum.
Okay, interesting.
I feel like you can always do more.
Sure.
But there are minimum requirements from a moral standpoint that you should at least hit as a good leader of a country or a nation.
Yeah, I like that it seems like everybody, and you said it verbatim, there are connotations to these words, right? And I chose them very specifically, right? Because good is a fun word. Because it's so malleable.
So many.
Evidently, I think all of us took it in a moral direction, especially when I countered with the example of Hitler, right?
Yeah.
But I think it could be argued that if we remove the moral element, to an extent, Hitler was an effective leader, maybe, for some period of time. Moral? No. But he rallied people. People did things.
Successful, yeah.
Successful, yeah. And same thing with leader. You kind of pointed out how your definition is probably going to change depending on the context, right?
Right.
Whether it's small group, whether it could even like a one-to-one relationship, if it's a country. And there's a lot of different ways we can go with that when we start making that distinction, right? I mean, go ahead.
I just think leader in itself has just a moral connotation, right?
I'm going to push back against that.
Okay.
Because like Hitler and Stalin exist, and they were leaders, no? If we remove like...
Definitionally, yes. I think they're leaders of their nations, but are they like leaders in the sense of like, I guess what we're talking about? I would say no.
Or to kind of, I'll give a response, but first just to kind of figure out where everyone's here. If you had to define the word leader, not specifically to any connotation like political or small group, if you had to define the word leader, how would you define it?
Somebody that takes charge of a large group of people and can organize those people according to separate tasks.
Position of authority.
Mm-hmm.
But not only position of authority, I think, a leader is a role. It has to. Mm-hmm. It has to come with some kind of authority.
It's a job.
It's a job.
And how would you define authority then?
Just being in charge of someone, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. If you're taxed with something, now you have authority over that thing. Authority can also imply power. Authority can imply responsibility. Authority can imply lots of things. Authority can be a position. Authority can be money. But as long as you're taxed with something, I think you have authority over that thing.
So it sounds to me like it's an exertion of power is how we would define, or the ability to exert power is authority, and then a leadership role basically embodies authority.
Yeah.
Would you say? Okay.
Or control.
Or control, yeah.
I guess my definition of leader is like, I'm going to go with the position of authority, but I'm going to add the moral component and say, like, you have to have whoever you're in charge of their interest at heart.
So by that definition, the likes of Hitler and Stalin were not leaders?
No, I would say they're not.
Then what were they?
Good.
They're in charge of their countries, nations, whatever you want to call them.
But then if we go with Blossom's component of having authority, they have the authority. Highest authority.
Okay, I don't know what they are, but I know what they're not in my purview of my definition.
I think what you're trying to say is they're not good leaders.
Yeah,
but are they leaders?
You need the good word there.
See, but I think if we're all living in a just society, you have to have that moral component.
But we're not.
Okay, well, fair enough.
No, yeah, like
I tried.
Well, we're getting there, right?
Yeah,
like I'm trying to establish like the as close to objective definition of leader we have, so that we can build our morality into it.
Okay, gotcha. Then yeah, I'll just agree with what's been said.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, all of these are good. Authority, kind of rallying and guiding people based off of how you recognize they could be effective. I broadly agree.
I just realized we do not have our...
Oh, we never put our meme up. There we go. Okay. But yeah, there's over the course of this class I'm taking, it's a... What is there something wrong with that?
No, it's just the look that we gave each other when it popped up on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll be able to watch it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is the hope.
But you see.
Anyway, I'm gonna take charge of the conversation, steer us back towards what is it to be like a leader, right? And yeah, it's really complicated, and a lot of people have tried to put like answers to this. They've made like theories. A lot of them have been what I asked kind of at the beginning: what traits kind of compose of a leader? And we can't really know when, but when you have enough traits and enough achievements, okay, that's probably a leader. Or we try to put like definitions on it and try and see who and who doesn't fit in. And eventually, I mean, we kind of saw with adding your moral component. I'm sure there are other things that each of us kind of differ in. It's a very hard thing to define, even though we all kind of know when we see it, right? Like what a leader is. To make it fun and political, is Trump.
God damn it.
I'll start with this. I don't want to add the moral component yet. Is he an effective leader? And if so, or why or why not? We'll start with you.
I'll let the
Okay,
Americans take the lead on this one.
I'm going to base this by term. First term, not an effective leader. Second term, he's starting to look like he'll be effective, whether in a good way or a bad way. You know, we all have our opinions on that. But I think just in terms of effectiveness, he's starting off with a bang.
And then why would you call that effective?
Just the things that he's doing, the speed that he's doing them, and just like, I guess just plainly how much is going on in the political world right now.
Is speed efficacy?
I'd say efficient. Yeah, speed has to do with efficiency.
No, I said efficacy.
Efficacy?
Sorry, we got that fun
Yeah, I know.
Western, like Cali, Montana pronunciation of words.
Montana?
Montana.
That's a good question. I don't know. It probably depends on what you think of his actions.
Okay.
So,
He's certainly efficient.
yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Granted, I think there are cases to be made that it's not exactly legal or it's morally dubious with his use of executive power, right?
Mhm.
But are you comfortable commenting on whether or not you think he's effective?
I think I would let Abby answer first.
Okay.
Let all the Americans answer.
I mean, me personally, I don't think he's a good leader, but effective, I think he has accomplished a lot of the things that he had said he was going to, in some senses. But I'm not really sure, honestly, if he, I just don't really know how to define effective in this sense, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Effective means working. Like, let's go with, like, working. Working successfully.
Yeah, like they have goals, aspirations, and they are successfully achieving those goals. But when we're attributing that to a leader, do you guys think that to what extent is like the will of your followers, your ability to enact the will of your followers, a component of what makes a leader effective? Because on one like framing, Trump is extremely like effective because for all of the MAGA people, he's doing exactly what he wants.
That's what I was going to say.
But if we
actually.
say that he's the leader of America, then 50%, and I wouldn't be too surprised if it starts getting a little bigger than that, yeah, are going to be like, actually, this isn't my will.
I'm going to make use of this.
I think that when you guys are talking about effective, at first I was going to be like, I don't know. But you're right. I did think for his party and for the 2025 project and all of the other things, he is doing exactly what he said he would, and he's getting them done in record speed. Yeah. And so I do think that he is being effective, actually. Quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
Quite efficient, too. Like speed.
Yeah,
definitely efficient.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I know that it felt so like integral to associate the good aspect, the moral aspect.
Because I knew where you were going with this. I sort of wanted to make it a qualification.
So let's work our way there.
Okay.
But I'm gonna tease you, and we're gonna go the other way. So I think I want to think most people would associate a moral component. Mm-hmm. But it gets weird when we have the likes of like dictators, right?
Yes.
Because if the followers of the dictator, the supporters of the dictator have a moral component, they must either not know about the bad things going on or not care. Not knowing makes sense, but if they don't care, then that morality is going to be called into question.
So as an example, like I would assume most people in North Korea think Kim Jong-un is a pretty good leader because that's what he tells them, right?
I wouldn't know.
That's fair, yeah.
And that's kind of like my point of this like morality question. So for each of you individually, what makes a leader a morally good leader? We'll start with you.
Always me first.
He just doesn't want to start with me.
Yeah, I'm teasing him.
I think somebody that is a morally good leader is somebody that takes into account how people feel about certain things, like the people that person is leading.
Empathetic?
Yeah, I think somebody that's very empathetic, but also can find a way to make the majority of the population of the people they're leading happy, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because, like, I know especially in America, we're very split right now in how we view things politically. And I think that a good leader of our country, like a moral leader of our country, would find a way to bring us closer together instead of further apart.
Fire.
Okay, that's good.
What about
Thank
you?
you.
I know you had mentioned like servitude, you know, like kind of acting for people, for the good of other people. Any other components?
Yeah, actually. First, I think I'm going to try to dissect the word morally good, or like the phrase.
What have you done?
Because I think what is moral and what is good sometimes can be separate, actually. Sometimes. I think something can be good and not necessarily be, what is that word? There is a word I'm looking for.
Can you describe it?
It is a word that means that something can be good generally, but is it good in the situation you're in, or is it good for you in that moment?
Damn, I'm sure I can find the word. I understand the idea, though.
Yeah.
So I think there's that, but then there's also good and what is moral being defined by your own values, your personal values, and if you're religious, your religion, your culture, your society. What is good in one society is different from what is good in another society, or what is moral in another society is different from what is moral here. So all of that, taking into account all of that, do we still like think?
It seems as though you've stumbled into moral subjectivism.
Exactly.
Which is, I didn't want to take y'all into philosophical hell today. So after Logan gives his long belated response, we won't go there. But yeah, morality is complicated. Tell us why.
Tell us why morality is
Or
complicated.
not really, but you know, the question of morally good leader.
Morally good leader, yeah. I'll just kind of like blanketly agree with what's been said, and then just to add on, I think a morally good leader is someone who not only understands but like factors in, like he knows the consequences of his actions.
He said he.
Or she.
Okay, my God.
Canceled.
I feel like he.
The Constitution
is used
never says
generally as
she
gender.
either.
Damn, checkmate. We
Neutral.
lost.
We could just.
But
use-
sorry, continue.
A leader
Yeah.
of no specified gender
Base.
takes into account the consequences of their actions on all people, and I'd say a good leader factors that in to what they decide.
One theory that I learned about as recently as last night, and it's got problems, but it also has like interesting things to look at, is literally just emotional intelligence leadership theory. I'm sure y'all are familiar with IQ, like the intelligence quotient. Have you heard of EQ?
Emotional, yeah.
Yeah. Same kind of thing. And that theory basically states that to be like a good leader, you need to build your EQ. You need to be sympathetic such that you can better represent your people, better embody those cultural, tenets. And I took my EQ test because the lecture had a video. I scored in the excellent range, okay?
And good for you.
So I'm
Congrats.
an amazing
Yeah.
leader.
When you're president in 30 years, I'll vote for you.
And I will be morally good. But no, it's I feel like this underlying theme of empathy seems to be the common denominator for morally good. I think it could even be argued across cultures. There's this idea of caring for your fellow man. Now, it doesn't have to be of like outgroups, but some kind of empathy. Would you all agree that that's a fair common denominator?
Yeah.
Of being a good leader?
A morally good leader, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I'd broaden it a little bit and be like someone who cares not only for their people, but also for other people as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, just to give like kind of an allegory, like can a robot be a good leader, or can an AI be a good leader?
Well, that's why I used the word good in the beginning, specifically because it was ambiguous. Morally, I'm not taking you into moral subjectivism.
I think it's impossible because this is making a lot of assumptions, but I don't think AI can even have any sense of moral.
but can the person who's receiving the actions of the AI fairly construe their actions as moral, given the fact that they know that the AI itself does not have morality?
Well, then that's like kind of outside the scope, because then the AI is not the true leader. It's just like whoever's disseminating.
I don't think AI can be a leader.
Okay, that's essentially my point, that you have to have some kind of empathetical
Human component?
Yeah, exactly.
And AI was like coded and created by people.
Yeah.
And so those people then put in their own things like into AI. So that way it's never really not biased.
Also, actually, I think I'm going to stay away from AI a little bit and then ask this question, because it keeps popping up into my mind. Can we balance ambition with morality?
Balance what with morality?
Ambition.
Ambition?
Of course. Yeah. Although, like...
But can you
it
reach your
depends.
peak ambition and still be moral?
Yes.
Here's my
100%.
answer.
Is it, like, guaranteed that, like, high ambition equals high morality? No. But
No,
if
I'm
it's...
saying, can you actively, as a leader, balance peak ambition, like to the extent of Alexander the Great, with morality?
What if my ambition is to be the most, like, morally good leader? Like, that is my drive. That is why I am here.
But
I'd say that's not existent.
You're
Yeah.
looking at me, dog.
Okay, but I guess here's my answer. In the world we live in, I'm going to say no. And here's how I get there. Because when you initially asked that, I really wanted to go the Machiavellian route of what's a good leader and just say, like, high ambition, I'm going to do this, this, and that. But then I figured out, like, I intuited
You intuited?
that you were going to go
This guy gets
the
it.
Hitler/Trump route. So I was saying, okay, no, you have to have the moral capacity. And then that just took out the Machiavellian definition of leadership.
Yeah.
So because I can't conflate the two, I'm just going to say no, you can't balance them.
Well, not to be too philosophical, but
God forbid.
Um,
Not on my podcast.
well,
I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
David Hume talks a lot about balancing ambition and morality together, and kind of just driving your own morality based off of what you want to achieve and how you deem things as good or bad based on like things that you've been through and experiences that you've had in your lifetime. And I think that ambition, I feel like there's not really a good way to balance morality and ambition because it varies from person to person. Because some people can be really ambitious and want to take over the entire world, as we've seen in history. But I don't think I don't think you can be moral in like this, like social, like in a society, how we define morality and things as good and bad.
Just like definitionally, I think it's impossible too, because if, like, realistically, if you take over a bunch of countries, to be a moral leader, you have to like cater to the needs of your people. The more people you serve, the harder that gets. So
Just for the sake of clarity, because maybe I'm just like on a different like wavelength. How do you all define ambition in this context?
A person's goals, personal goals.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing.
Oh, okay, then I'm in the same boat. I think that like like my own personal ambitions and like every pseudo leadership role, every role I've been in has been like motivated by I care about other people. I'm empathetic towards other people, and it makes sense to me that if I was to go like further up in like a leadership position, that would still be my underlying like motivation.
Okay, but I think.
Would it not be yours?
Let me land.
Sure.
Okay. So I talked about leader being a servant, right? And part of being a servant to me is being selfless. I think to be a leader, you have to die to yourself. Like you must. I don't think that. I'm not saying that you can't have goals and ambitions, or you can't have things that you want to do, but I do think that in the light of the people, your goals must come last. And if your goals come first, whether it is that I care about my people, I think if you put yourself and your goals first as a good leader, you will not be moral.
But what if my goal is to fulfill the goals and needs of my people?
I still think that just because it aligns to that area, maybe it will work out. But I think that generally across the board, the self must die for you to be a good leader.
I don't just have the same goals as my leaders. My goal is to fulfill whatever theirs is. It's not like I just happen to have the same one.
And I think maybe that's like 1 out of 100.
I was going to say that's
1 out of
probably a special
500
case.
I'll gladly grant that it's rare.
But also power changes things. Authority changes things. Once you sit on that seat, you start seeing more and more things, and then you grow more and more ambitious, and then you see more and more things that you want to do. But then if you cannot die to yourself and you cannot put yourself least before like the people, I think that you start erring towards the morally gray area. And once you start erring there, you start becoming more and more bad.
Let me kind of throw something into the mix. Ambition for me, I'm going to like pessimistically say it's the same as greed, except in the sense like ambition isn't limited to just like material.
That's good.
So that's just kind of how I see it. And again, it's pretty pessimistic, but that's kind of the world we live in.
Ambition is it can be synonymous to greed. I do think ambition is something you want. It's something you that's your goal, that's your lifelong achievement, whatever it is. And the more ambitious you get, the more greedy you are.
Yes.
Every human being is greedy naturally. We're greedy. We want more. We cannot be truly altruistic, no matter how we want to seem.
Well, that I agree with, but then it becomes like a worthless point. Because I also grant that like every action, including altruistic acts, are at their core selfish. We've talked about this before. Was it season 1 episode?
Yeah, it had to have been. And it's been brought up a couple times.
And I'm making this argument with that admission in mind already. Like, I don't think anybody can ever act without being selfish, even if it manifests as a morally good action. But like, that's just every action such that it'd be worthless to distinguish between the two, which is why I still adhere to what I'm saying.
I would say when you kind of, quote unquote, die to yourself, then you're starting to walk in the path where I could see you actually achieving some form of like the highest good. Because there are some people throughout history that we can pinpoint and be like, they were good, objectively.
Do you think that, like, when we look at those people, I don't know how else to frame this. I don't mean to like belittle your position or anything, but we look at them and go, that person is merely a body. Like they aren't a person because they've so heavily killed themselves so that they could be a good leader. Because in my interpretation, I feel like they're just good people. And the core of who they are, like it's not that there's nothing there anymore. The core of who they are is truly and utterly moral.
That's why I said, quote unquote, not killing yourself. I feel like when you say die to yourself, people assume that you just like douse all your personality and cast away all worldly things. And I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. It just means that you put yourself like second and other people first when you're a leader.
I think we're like maybe unconsciously assuming that a perfect leader even exists. That's just not the case.
It's true.
I feel like it's hard to be completely selfless as a leader while also being a human.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, obviously, I do think that the leader should take care of themselves, know when to say no, all of those things. But when you're in a position of authority, it's still important that you know when the people should come first. Does that make
I agree
sense?
with you.
Yeah.
What about in the context of the United States when the people like are divided and, in a room of 10 people, 5 of them are going to want something, 5 people
That's
are going
why
to want the
I said
opposite.
the leader cannot like serve you cannot serve everybody as a leader.
Sure.
I think you can do the best you can
Yeah.
to cater to both.
That's why he has the senators, the House of Reps. That's why you have all of these people around you so that you make the best and most informed decision. The leader is not just one person. I think the leader is the entire body. And the entire body must all try to die to themselves.
Democracy. Yeah.
Government for half the people.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be a Robert
Yikes.
topic.
Yeah.
When he comes back, I'm sure he'd be eager to talk
Like
about
if
that.
he listens to this, he's going to be like, let's talk about that.
Actually.
Actually.
I'm sure he'd have a lot to say.
Oh, he always does. We love him.
Okay. So concluding, thoughts, feelings, memes, revelations, and I will start with you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Leadership.
wow.
Okay, the one time I don't actually have much to say.
I'm sorry. The only reason I'll start with you is because it's kind of like weird logistically to like go like.
Yeah, and then be like, okay, I'm just out
Yeah.
of here.
Just concluding thoughts.
I think what I said made me realize something. I think good leaders are almost born out of tragedy. So when we like take 9/11 for example, what was Bush's approval rating right after 9/11? It was like 90%. Then he kind of screwed things up and it was really, really low. But what's the phrase that like weak times create good leaders create good times create weak leaders, or something like that? I might have mixed that up.
I think is the original quoting. But
Something like that. But
Yeah.
like I guess I kind of adhere to that sort of structure and cycle, and not perfectly, obviously, but I do think that tragedy breeds great leaders.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Sure. Whoever.
I think I kind of would contradict a little bit, but not as much.
We might be on the same. I want to hear. Yeah, go ahead.
I think in times of tragedy, it's easier for people to be more empathetic, and like everybody's in this sympathetic, somber, I feel you, you feel me, we're all mourning mood, and that's probably why Bush's ratings went up
Sure.
so much. It's because the people are craving their leader, they're craving comfort, and he's the human condition is just like when you see pain, you feel pain, you know.
Yeah.
So that, but I do think that what creates truly good leaders is like teaching. I think in times of tragedy, people are talking more often, they're listening, and if you pass down those traits, you create good leaders for tomorrow. If you fail to do that, then you will create weak leaders. And that's why in times of like when the country is flourishing or when people are flourishing, if you look at rich men and they're flourishing, they're good, they have money, wealth, whatever, and they fail to teach their kids how they created their wealth, what happens in the next 20 years after their parents are gone? They squander it. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see people who actually teach their kids, like, this is what I do, this is why I do it, this is how you do this, and they imbibe those values, they continue their tradition of wealth, they become good leaders themselves.
Yeah.
So I think what makes good leaders is the thought, is the teaching. It's that culture, like
Yeah, on an individual level, it's like the parents, the teachers.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Well put.
You know, I do think I agree with that point a lot. Like, I think that resonates with me. When you first asked me to define what a good leader was, I was thinking of it more in the sense of what kind of a leader I would want to be and the characteristics that I would want to have as a leader. And then I think when we added a more moral component, it became less centered around myself and more about people, like serving people. When Blossom mentioned that, I was like, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think, especially when we're talking about nations and countries, that selflessness is a big component of being a part of a leader, like being a good leader to your people.
I was kind of the opposite. Like, you know, naturally I went to a political perspective, and instead of focusing on like what I want to be, I immediately thought of like what I want to see in the world.
Yeah.
When you asked me that question. So it was less like me personally, like what I would want to do as a leader, and more of like, dang, our leaders kind of suck. This is what I'd want to see instead.
That's funny because immediately I went to, what did I hear growing up? What did I see growing up? And like, what are the differences in what I was told and thought in my country versus when I came here? And I think all of that, it was very much like introspective and then outrospective. So like it was a combination of the two.
Isn't this great? We've got 4 people with 4 different perspectives.
I think it's
amazing.
interesting that we all started at different points, but we seem to
Yes.
agree mostly at the end by looking at it from different perspectives.
Yeah, that's a beautiful conclusion, because that's kind of what we're learning over the course of this class I'm taking, is leadership is so hard to narrow down, so heavily context, culturally, societally dependent. And people have been trying for like a few hundred years now to like be like, this is it. When we're quickly realizing, no, not really. We can point out some things that make it sufficient. But I think I agree with you that maybe not like dire times of tragedy, but when things are better, less people are going to be aware of suffering. They're not going to experience suffering as much, and so they won't maybe cultivate as strong of an empathetic tie to people, right? And then if you don't have that empathy, why would you share anything with anybody? But yeah, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your,
It's a good
your
topic.
input.
Thank you for the topic.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Oh yeah, of
Oh,
course.
Well, we haven't even done the outro yet, so
You're not off the hook
You're
yet.
not. You got like a minute left.
Great.
Would you like to do the outro, or not yet? No pressure.
I actually don't know what the outro is.
That's
We
perfect.
have a set outro. I didn't know this.
Exactly.
I mean, in my head, it's like Oh, we're in outro mode, and then
Pokemon.
we just say
Make
goodbye.
sure to
last
like and
week-
subscribe.
Last week was hilarious.
We did that last week.
Did you really?
Hit
Yes.
that bell.
Let's do a Pokemon outro.
Turn on post notifications.
Pokemon.
Oh.
I'm
Gotta
not going
catch
over
them
that.
all.
Pokemon. It's Peyton. Yay! I don't know. You said do Pokemon.
Oh. I was so scared for a minute. But that was good.
Do you want to
That was
send
beautiful.
us off?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
That'd be
Thank
great.
you. I need it.
Can get a normal outro for once. My God.
Imagine that would have broken. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week, I assume. Do we know who's giving the topic next week?
You.
Ooh.
Wow. Get
So,
ready, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fun. Make sure to tune in next week and be on the lookout for our event March 4th. That's all from us. So I've been Logan.
I've been Peyton.
Lawson?
Abby.
We'll see you all in the next one.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Goodbye.